It was that reminder of God's sovereignty. His ways are higher. His perspective is much greater than mine. And so I felt like a lot of peace when I would surrender to the truth that God is sovereign. His will is good and perfect, and that doesn't always mean it feels good. And I think that's important for us to remember, that he's still good though. And so that would repeat in my mind, just the thought that remembering that his ways are higher.
Welcome to the Trailblazer Talks podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Hope Jones. This podcast is designed to encourage and equip you to be a trailblazer right where you are, to help you discover your God-given purpose and bring you talks each week that will inspire you to do what you were made for. So let's get into this week's episode. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the Trailblazer Talks podcast. I'm excited to introduce you guys to this week's guest, Kara Stout. She's a writer, a wife, a new adoptive mom, and she's the author of An Untroubled Heart, Calming Anxiety and Finding God's Peace, which we're going to talk about in this episode. But before we jump in, Kara, thank you so much for being on the show. I would love if you could introduce yourself to our listeners and just tell them a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. Thank you, Courtney. I'm excited for our conversation. So as Courtney said, I am a wife. My husband and I will have been married 15 years in July. Newish mom, I guess. She's 20 months, so she's toddler. So we adopted her. And let's see, we live in Los Angeles, California. And I've been writing in the Christian space, I would say about 6 years now, and have my first book out, which is the devotional.
Yeah, that's so exciting. And did you also used to do like food photography or something?
Yes. Oh, you
That's so
saw.
cool. I did. Well,
Yes.
when I was looking at your website and stuff, it also had pulled up the photography and I was like, wait, is this the same person? And I was like, that's so cool. Cause my first job out of college was at Southern Living in their cookbook division. And so I worked with a lot of food stylists and photographers. And so I was excited to see that about you.
I love that you saw that. Yeah, I really had so much fun doing that.
Yeah, that was such a fun season.
Yeah, it really was. I love the food styling aspect, and I was doing it like even a little bit after Nora, and then once I started writing, and then had Nora, it was like the capacity was like not there. So maybe I'll
Yeah.
pick it up again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, at
yeah,
least it's like a skill that you always have.
yeah. Thank you. It was so
Yeah,
fun.
it is
Yeah,
fun. Yeah, I have
yeah,
several friends who they are in that space in Birmingham where I used to live, because
yeah,
Southern Living's is or was in Birmingham.
yeah,
So it's so much fun. But
yeah.
one thing that I love just to like open up the show with is asking our guests, since the show is called the Trailblazer Talks, is what is one piece of advice that you have learned on your trail in life that you would maybe give someone who's a few steps behind you?
First, I love the name of your podcast.
Thank you.
That's such a, and the question is so sweet. Okay, so yeah, I know. I was thinking there's a few things when you were asking the question, but I think I want to touch on the season of waiting. I feel like a good amount of people feel like they're in a season of waiting or have been. I mean, we all go through seasons of waiting, right? And I think I would want to encourage somebody who may be a few steps behind or struggling is that just to remind them to lean into it. And it's really hard. Don't try to rush the waiting season. Let God have his work in you because he really truly transforms us in our waiting seasons. I just feel like I see that so clearly with our daughter who we waited for 10 years. And it was painful. It was so painful. And yet God did so much in that season in my heart. And so I just would encourage somebody to just allow him in and just there's this growth in your relationship with the Lord that's so beautiful. So I would just, that's one of the main things that came to mind when you asked that question.
Yeah, no, I think that's so relatable and something that in some shape or form we all have gone through, are going through, will go through in whatever season that looks like. I know several friends who are in different types of waiting seasons, whether it's singleness, or whether it's for waiting to get pregnant, or whether it's waiting for like a job opportunity. So I think that's so relatable. Whenever you guys were in that waiting season of adoption, what was there like a verse or anything like that that you kind of clung to, or just something that you clung to in your prayer time that kind of just helped kind of ease your heart in that time?
Yeah, I love that. I would say his ways are higher. I
Mhm.
feel like that was just, and this was through the adoption season and also through the grief and loss of my parents. It was that reminder of God's sovereignty,
Mhm.
and his ways are higher. His perspective is much greater than mine. And so I felt like a lot of peace when I would surrender to the truth that God is sovereign
Mhm.
and his will is good and perfect, and that doesn't always mean it feels good, and I think that's important for us to remember that he's still good though. And so that would repeat in my mind, just the thought, that remembering that his ways are higher.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think a lot of people are kind of feeling that tension in the past several years of just life is louder, things are more overwhelming than they used to be. And I know you've, as you just mentioned, you've walked through some of your own seasons of like uncertainty and transition. And I would love just to talk through any encouragement that you would have for the listener who may be kind of in seasons of uncertainty where you don't know exactly what the
Mm.
outcome's going to be.
Yes, definitely have walked through my fair share of those seasons of uncertainty, and it's hard. Different seasons, career changes I've had, as we talked about, the waiting for children, not knowing, for like during my mom's cancer journey, if she was going to be healed or not. I would say a big encouragement I would remind all of us, myself too, is to turn down that noise
Mhm.
and the distractions, because those can definitely bring more overwhelm and stress when and numb us, and again distract us. So we're distracting our time with God. Like, if we think about how much time maybe we're on our phone or,
Mhm.
TV shows or whatever. And I'm not saying that, those are okay with boundaries, right? But if we're in the middle of this trying season and we really need God and we need his peace, we need his comfort, his guidance, we will receive more of that when we spend more time with him.
Mhm.
And so I feel like a big thing would be to turn that noise down and
Yeah.
just go to him and be honest with him. And one thing that I have written about on social media is that, how do I phrase it? What God calls you to, he will walk you through.
Mm.
And so it's just that reminder that he's with us. So whoever is going through that type of season, I just encourage you that he is with you and he has prepared you for this current season that you're in. And then he will walk you through this season into the next. So we just can have comfort that we're not alone.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so beautiful, and that reminds me, there's a Rita Springer came out with a new album, gosh, was I think in the fall maybe, and there's a line in one of her songs that says, "You didn't lead me here to leave me here," and that's something
I
that, like,
love it.
I've clung to in seasons of waiting. I just this past summer I was in a career transition, left my corporate job, started working for myself, the creative studio that I own, and there were times where I had slower seasons where I'm like, God, I know you called me to
Mm-hmm.
be an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. I know you called me to this
Yes.
season of life.
Right.
Like, I trust that you're going to bring provision. And that
Mm-hmm.
song was something I clung to in that season of just like, you didn't lead me here to leave me here. Like, you're not just letting me
Right.
flail around and be like, what is happening? But I
Yes.
love what you wrote. That's so, so beautiful.
Oh, well, wow, I love that. I need to hear that song. I don't think I've heard it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think which one it is on her album. See if I can pull it up really quick while we're
Yeah.
chatting.
Yeah.
But it's on her Fed by Ravens album, and I want to say it's either the song I think he is, or it's the song Not Going Anywhere. But I can't remember exactly which one it is. But
Okay.
the whole
Yeah.
album is just beautiful. Like,
Okay.
I have loved that album, and it's just such a like balm
Mm,
for like that type of season, like a balm for your soul.
yeah.
But it's beautiful. But
I
I
love
do,
that.
yeah. I want to talk about
Mhm.
your devotional too, because
Okay.
it's such a beautiful story of just things you've walked through and just the way that you have been able to write about that. I would love for you just to tell us about this devotional and just kind of the heart behind it and just what the readers can glean from it.
Yeah. Okay, so I would want to start with explaining how I even started writing really in
Yeah.
the Christian space. And that was 6 years ago. And that was really when I was walking with my mom through her cancer journey. And as you pointed out, my social media was first food photography. Or not
Mm.
first, it was like really focused on that at that point. And then as I was seeing God's goodness through that season, I just couldn't help but write about him. And
Mhm.
so that's really where it started for me, the writing about God, his faithfulness. And then I was writing prayers, and that really led into the book. And just taking these different times of my life that were difficult seasons of suffering, grief, and loss, seasons of worry. And I just kept seeing how real God was and is. And I was like, I just can't help but talk about him and these experiences. And so this book is really to testify about God and his faithfulness and his trustworthiness, and also to share with the readers what I feel God has taught me in those seasons to calm my heart, to trust in him. And really God gave me a heart for his daughters who will read the
Mm.
book, just a heart for them, and to really offer them words of encouragement and hope and healing. So that's a big prayer of mine for each reader.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And remind us the title, just so everyone knows
Yeah.
the title of the book. It's An Untroubled Heart, Calming Anxiety and
And
Finding God's Peace.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I
Um,
love that title.
yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. And I did want to mention too, it's a 30-day devotional, but it's also morning and evening.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's 30 days, but there's 60 devotional entries total, and then 60 prayers.
Hmm.
And I really felt a need for the evening portion
Mm,
because
yeah.
I feel like a lot of us miss that evening opportunity to go to God.
Yeah.
And so that was another really big piece of my heart behind writing it.
Hey friends, interrupting this episode for just a moment to let you know about the resources that my company, Little Creative Company, offers. We love bringing clarity to your calling and mission through building a stronger online presence for you. With our 2-week website packages, branding, marketing strategy, and SEO services will help you increase your impact for the kingdom. If your DIY brand is ready for an upgrade, let us help you take it to the next level. Send us an email at hello@littlecreativecompany.com or visit our website at littlecreativecompany.com. You can also find the links in the show notes. Okay, now back to today's conversation. Yeah, I think that's so cool though, because so often, and I know like I start my morning with God, but and I tend to talk to him throughout the day about
Mhm.
different things, but sometimes it is like right before bed, I find myself unfortunately scrolling on my phone or something like that. And it's like I don't always end my day with God. And sometimes that's the time of day where my mind is like going the most of like, oh, did I do this? Did I pick up that? Oh, what's going to happen with this? And so I love that you added that evening component because it's almost a way to like reset our hearts right before bed. Because I was listening, who was I listening to? I was listening to some podcast, and they were saying that like whatever you watch or read or do like right before bed is kind of like where your mind stays like as you sleep. And so I think like how beautiful is that if we end our day with a devotional and in scripture and prayer, because then that's kind of where our mind goes instead of
That's right.
racing about everything else we have.
Yes. Wow. That's so true.
And one of the things that I know you talk about is just those unanswered prayers or those like long awaited prayers. And that's something I know a lot of people carry silently sometimes. It's just that ache. I know, I think it's in Proverbs 13 that it says, a hope deferred makes the heart sick. And so I'd love to learn from you just how did you stay close to God in those moments where it felt like the unanswered prayers were dragging on and you just didn't really feel like you had all the answers yet.
Yes. Oh, I really feel like I feel like the answer is within your question in the sense of we s- we stay close to the one who does know the answers, right?
Mm.
And so it's like we won't know all the answers. And at the same time, exactly like you said too, that when we're waiting on God and we are praying prayers. So I'll share two examples, different outcomes when prayers are not answered in the way we hoped.
Yeah.
And so I talk about that prayer that I prayed about my mom for her healing.
Hmm.
And I was so honest with God. And I think that's a big part of the message throughout my book, too, is just being vulnerable and telling
Mm.
God how much pain that we're in sometimes. And so what I realized is that though he didn't answer my prayer for her healing on earth, right? She's in heaven now. He answered with his presence. He answered with strength that I know could only come from him, because to have to and like continue on in this life without her. I mean, we were best friends, and that's only by him, is only by his grace. Peace that really didn't make sense in the middle of all of that.
Hmm.
So I really started seeing, wow, God, like you don't answer, like if you didn't answer that specific prayer, you answered in other ways. And I feel like that's where he really shifted my perspective to see that he is the gift of prayer.
Hmm.
He's the
Yeah.
gift. It's himself. Although, yeah, and when he does answer prayers, those are huge gifts too. As the other example I wanted to touch on is the gift of our daughter, Nora. So we
Mm.
prayed for her for 10 years, and now here she is. And she
Yeah.
is just a delight. I look at her and I'm like, God's timing is so perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I would love to hear more about your heart for that too, and like how you guys knew you wanted to adopt. And
Hmm.
I think I read a little bit about it, but I'd just love to hear just the story of that, because I know um, there's probably listeners who have a heart for adoption or
Hmm.
who maybe haven't considered that option, but I think that they could be encouraged by your story.
Yes. So we always had a heart to adopt. My husband is adopted. And, but we thought that we would conceive first and then
Mm.
maybe adopt. Well, that didn't happen. Yeah. So we walked through infertility for 7 years. And then so at 7 years, we were like, okay, I think it's time we really start being serious about adoption. And that was a
Mhm.
3-year journey. Um, and I want to encourage anybody too that I mean everyone's journey is different, but the adoption journey it can be hard. I mean for multiple reasons, but I just want to encourage you though that it is so worth it if that is where God is calling you, and he will orchestrate all of it. And so, yeah, it was a 3-year journey that we did have an adoption fall through. I talk about that in the book a little bit, and that was very hard. That was one of the hardest things that we've walked through. Um, and we actually paused our adoption after that to
Mm.
heal, because we felt God, encouraging, just wait and heal.
Mm. Yeah.
And then he started moving our hearts again. And we're like, okay, I think we're ready. And so then shortly after that is when we were matched with Nora's birth mom. And then Nora was born. And then I look at her and I'm like, yeah, she's our daughter. She was our daughter all along. So it's like
Yeah.
I'd wait again for her for 10
Yeah.
years. So yeah.
That's so beautiful. Well, and I think about that too whenever I think about just all throughout scripture, it talks about the appointed time. And I
Yes.
think about, it was very strategic of when God brought Jesus to the earth too, and like that time in history. Like there was no other time in history that would have been as perfect for him to be there. And I always think about that. If God thinks about us in our mother's womb before our mom even never thought of us, and like he knows, and he says he sets the lonely in families. I just think that's beautiful, both with adoption and conception and everything, of just God knows the exact
Mm,
perfect time for each person to walk
that's
on
right.
earth. I think that's so
Amen.
so cool.
Yes. Amen. That's right.
I know, like, you've talked a lot about kind of those different hard seasons, and just when it feels like those answers aren't coming and all of that. I would love to kind of talk through the peace that you've talked about too, and just how can we connect with God and his peace, and what does that peace look like? Because I think sometimes we think peace just means that there's nothing going on,
Mm,
nothing's bad, nothing's
right.
wrong, like
Hmm.
that's peace. Like if there's no trouble, then there's peace. But I think peace
Hmm.
is so much deeper than that, and
That's right.
oftentimes it does accompany us in hard seasons. So I'd love to hear just what you have learned about peace and any practical things that you would encourage the listeners with.
Yes. I really love that you brought that. I think that's a topic that we should talk about more in general in the Christian world or whatever
Yeah.
Christian. Because, yeah, I think that that could apply to peace, to joy, to Christian joy. It's
Hmm.
like it doesn't, it's this underlying in the middle of the suffering or trials or difficulties that remains there, right? It's like that deep peace, that deep knowing that we're not alone. And also, the truth that he's with us. And I feel like for me, that was a big encouragement to my heart with peace that I know he's there. And here I want to say too is that sometimes it doesn't feel like he's there if we're
Hmm.
honest, right? Like if we're praying, it can feel like we're abandoned or forgotten sometimes, right? These if we're praying and like I remember early on when we brought Nora home and I'm learning motherhood and I'm exhausted and like, God, help me. And then I wouldn't feel like he was helping me. And I'm like, Lord, help me, where are you? And again, there's that honest piece that I think is
Hmm.
necessary for a deep relationship with him. And then what he would help me do is a few things. He would help me remember and recall the times that he had been faithful in the past, right? We all have that. We can all, say like, can you remember a time where God helped you before or carried you before? And so I think it's so important for us to remember and recall his faithfulness in the past,
Hmm.
knowing that he will again, he's faithful to his character. It says in his word that he is our help. He
Hmm.
is our strength. So we just say like, okay, God, like I may not feel it right now, but I know that you will help me and I will wait on you for your help. And so that is what I also like to refer to in the book too, is like persistent prayer, that
Hmm.
we persistently pray and believe that he will be there. And his help really always does come.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the timing we're anticipating, or sometimes it's a different way, that he helps us through different avenues. And so I think that's been very helpful for me. And then one last thing is the hymn, "'Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus," when it talks about, um, uh, how does it word it? To give that he would give us grace to trust him more. I'm like
Mm.
paraphrasing that phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's where I'll pray sometimes, like if, and that hopefully this is an encouragement to the listeners too, that if we are ever struggling to trust, that we can pray, God, help me to trust you more. Give me grace to trust you more.
Hmm.
And he will.
Yeah. I think that's such a beautiful reminder because that's something that I have learned over the years and still learn. I feel like it's a repeat
Oh,
lesson
yes.
sometimes. It's like the minute a hard season comes again, then I'm like, oh man,
Oh,
like
yeah.
I kind of forgot that I learned this before.
Yeah.
But I love that reminder from that hymn because I grew up singing that in church, but
You did? Oh,
I
I love
don't,
that.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think it like just hit me though that that's the words that it says is
Mhm.
like grace to trust him again, to trust him more because it can be really hard to trust God. And that was something even recently I was reminded of like we so often pray and talk about, Proverbs, I think it's Proverbs 3, where it's like, trust in the
Yes,
Lord with
trust in the
all
Lord.
your heart and
Yes.
lean not on your own understanding. And we're like, okay,
Right.
great, got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And then it comes time to do that. And
That's
we're
right.
crying out to God, just like David
Mhm.
did in the Psalms of like, oh
Yeah.
God, where are you?
Yes.
And we realize like, oh, maybe I don't trust him as much as I
Mm.
thought I did. Or
Mm.
maybe I need to have more grace to trust him, or I
Mm.
need to pray that hymn, like you just said, of give me the grace to trust you. So I love that you brought that up. It's so beautiful.
Yes. And one thing I want to say too with what you said, I feel like there is that where we can feel like, oh, am I not trusting you enough? And that could be dependent on what's going on. But I feel like the last several months, or probably also through writing the book, I feel like there is so much trust in God though when we're still going to him. And
Mm.
that is evident of our faith, right?
Mm.
Like even when you said like, where are you, God? The fact that we're like, okay, I believe that he's real and he's there. And I'm saying,
Yeah.
where are you? And if we think of David, I mean, he would experience like, when my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. So it's like, so he would feel these emotions and go to God, like, I know you're the answer, the remedy. And so I feel like hope, I mean, that was been encouraging to me. I hope it's encouraging
Yeah.
to others too, of like, we are showing our trust and our faith in him, even when we're like struggling, like, where are you, God? Because yeah, I think it just shows us that we believe in his power.
Yeah, that's so true. I've never thought about it that way. Just the fact that we are going to him shows that we do at least, and I mean, he talks about mustard seed faith and things like that. And sometimes I feel like, oh, I don't have enough faith. I'm like, well, I know I at least have a mustard seed because those are like teeny, teeny, tiny. But I
Right.
love like what you said about
Yeah.
that we are trusting him by at least
Yes.
just even talking to him. Because I think
That's
if
right.
we didn't trust him at all, we would just not pray and we would just try to do it on our own completely. But
Yeah.
the fact that we do continually go before him shows that we at least have some level of trust with
That's
him.
right. Absolutely. I mean, again, look at David. I mean, he's
Yeah.
going to God all the time, and he's going through seasons of distress, like throughout the Psalms. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, we know he was a man after God's heart. And so I feel like that's a great example for us to remember, like, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, anytime I like think about what I'm praying, sometimes I'm like, am I being too much, God, or too honest? And I'm like, I look at what David like wrote in
Yes.
the Psalms. I'm like, he
Yes.
got after it sometimes. Like he was just
Yeah.
like pouring his soul out. And then sometimes he was super happy and dancing
Right.
before the Lord. And other times he was
Yes.
like, God, have you forsaken me? Like, where are
Yeah.
you? And so I'm like, okay, if
Yeah.
David prayed that way and
Hmm.
it's recorded in the Bible, then my
Yeah.
prayers are fine.
Yeah. And doesn't it deepen our relationship with God?
Yeah.
I really feel like it does. And like that's what's so cool about God, is this powerful God, but also so personal.
Yeah.
I mean, and he desires this close relationship with us. It's
Yeah.
so overwhelming to think about that.
It is. Yeah. And is there anything else that, like, when you were trying to kind of cling to that peace and going through those hard seasons, was there anything else that really helped you in that season? Like, I know you talked about spending time with the Lord and
Right.
prayer, but was there anything
Yeah.
else that just was kind of like that balm to the hard season for you?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, well, I don't think, I know. I guess I'm kind of wondering to phrase this in the sense of, I don't know if this would sound maybe like a typical answer, but it's okay because I think it's important. But God's word, I think it's important again to turn down the distractions and spend time in his word. We can all do that every day. We really can.
Mhm.
For me, that brought a tremendous amount of peace, and it continues to every day. I try every day to read. And through the journey with my mom through cancer, I just want to just share a quick little story that
Yeah,
I thought
please
was
do.
really amazing. Is I had created a 100-day reading plan through the New Testament right around that time, or towards the end of her life, right before she left for heaven. I like to say left for heaven because
Yeah.
that's where she's at. So I would be over. So I spent that year flying back and forth. She was in Dallas. I'm now in Los Angeles, and spending time with her. And I would often be in her bed with her, and I would be reading the Bible. And so I wouldn't necessarily read it out loud, because if she was
Mhm.
napping or sleeping or didn't feel well, but I would just be reading the word in her room with her. And I
Mhm.
remember one night I think I was reading Acts, which I love Acts. Side
Yeah,
note,
me too.
right? Acts
Yeah.
is amazing. And I was reading Acts, and I wasn't reading it out loud. And she was saying, I just feel so much peace in here when as
Mm.
you're reading. And I was like, wow. Like,
Mhm.
it's just, so there's so much power in God's word, even just, I feel like the Bible, opening it up and
Yeah.
just, so for me, that was a big piece of it. And so I read even on the day that she passed away, then the next day, and I just continued reading his word. I did not
Mhm.
stop. And that brought in a lot of perspective and a lot of peace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. That's something that, I have tried to do in our home is
Mm.
kind of cultivate that atmosphere of peace, whether it's having worship music going over
Yes.
the speaker in our house or, praying scripture out loud. And it's funny because I love to sit at our kitchen table and do my time with God. This was a couple places that we lived to go when I lived in Cincinnati a few years ago. And I remember I had someone over for dinner and they were like, wow, it's just such a peaceful atmosphere in here. Like I could just sense the difference. And I don't know if you've seen the
Amen.
movie War Room,
Yes.
but it
Yes.
reminds me of Miss Clara's prayer closet
Yes.
where people
Yeah.
are like the people that like bought the house after her were
Yes.
like, there's something different in here.
Right?
And I've thought about that. I'm like, I want to
Amen.
cultivate that
That's right.
in my home and the
Yes.
spaces and places that God sends me
Yes.
to. And I think
I
what you were
love that.
saying is so beautiful
Mm.
of like,
Mm.
even if you're not like
Yeah.
saying it out loud because the person's sleeping or whatever, like you
Mhm.
aren't able to speak out
Right.
loud, just the
Yes.
power of having his word in
There.
that room. Like it's inviting the
Yes.
Holy Spirit in and
That's
inviting
exactly.
his presence just to
Yes.
like be
Right.
in the room with you. So I love that.
Yes. Well, I love too how you brought up worship music. That's definitely brings in a lot of peace. I love that you
Yeah.
have that in your home and yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And was there any part of the book that you're like, this is it's kind of grown to be like your favorite part? I know obviously it's
Yeah.
never fun to like write a book about
Yeah.
anxiety and the different things, like those hard
Yeah.
topics. God's like, hey, write a book on this. You're like, can I
Yeah.
write it on joy? But was
Yeah.
there any part that you kind of grew to, it's like now your favorite part of the devotional book that was like, oh, this was my favorite?
Gosh, this is a
Sorry
fun
to put you on the
question.
spot. I just like thought of that.
No, I like it. I like it. I feel like a few things come to mind. I really w- did enjoy the entries where I talk a lot about God's creation. And that's another way I feel a lot of peace is outside looking at God's creation, flower. His beauty is so evident. And like that really
Mhm.
brings me a lot of peace. I'm sure a lot of us feel that. So I loved writing about that. There's an entry or a day where it's morning glory, and then at night it's called moonflowers, and they
Mm.
are the same species of flowers, but one blooms in the morning. The morning glory blooms
So
in the.
cool.
I know, right? It blooms in the morning, and then the moonflowers bloom at night. How cool!
Wow. I
Isn't
never
that
knew that.
I know. So we have
That's so
morning
cool.
glories in our backyard. And then I recently, when I started writing the book, I say in that I recently learned about moonflowers. And I was like, wow. And there's so much lesson in that, I think, for us too. That's what I write about.
Mhm.
That in the morning that we awake, do we awake to give God glory? And so I talk about that. And then the moonflowers is like, okay, do we bloom at night? Are we these lights of Christ at night in the darkness for others to be encouraged by? So that I really love those pieces of creation throughout. I talk a good amount about that. And then one of my other favorite entries was it's called A Heart Like a Garden. And
Mm.
again, it's connected with flowers, but it's very much connected with God creating in us a pure heart.
Mhm.
And so that was really, I mean, honestly, some of them, it's so cool how God is, right? When we're
Yeah.
working on stuff with him, it's like some of it flows, right? The words or the creation or whatever, our work will flow. And then sometimes we have to wrestle with him with it.
Mhm.
And so, but all of it is so intentional by him because he's
Yeah.
growing us in that. Again, we're depending on him for that help.
Mhm.
And it's just a beautiful place to be for all of us when we're just dependent on him.
Yeah. No, I probably hear God the best whenever I'm out for a walk
Mm,
or
yeah.
hiking or just anything in nature, like at the beach or somewhere like that. Like I just feel like in out in God's creation, I tend to hear him the absolute best. And I love that too. Just like seeing different things. I'm like, sometimes when I just look at different landscapes and stuff, I'm like, how can someone not believe in God?
That's
Like, look
right.
how
Yes.
crazy this is. Like, this is just
Yes.
beautiful. And like, I'll see these different travel videos
Yeah.
on my like Instagram and stuff sometimes when I'm like scrolling through the reels. It's just like it's showing like different places. There's so many beautiful places out west and then like just all over the world. I'm like I see things and like we went to Iceland for our honeymoon and it
Fun.
was so much fun. But I'm just like,
Yeah.
is this the same planet? Like this
I
is
know.
so cool.
Right?
And I'm like,
It's
God is so
yeah.
cool. Like
He
I
is.
don't know how people can look at the earth and be like,
That's right.
I don't
I
know.
know. I
It just
know.
fascinates me.
And everything is so perfectly created too
Hmm.
and precise like the sun, its
Hmm.
size, the distance to support life on earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
It's so
nothing is out
neat.
of his control, right? And so there's a lot of peace in that too,
Yeah,
like
it
the
is, and
God.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like looking around, you're like, "Okay, God made all
All
of this,
yes.
like, and He
Yes.
cares about me."
Right.
Like, "Okay,
Yes.
I think I
Yes.
can rest
Yeah.
in that."
this is true. It's so true, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even like me going for walks, like every time I see flowers, we unfortunately don't have
Yeah.
a
Right.
lot of pretty flowers right now
Right now.
here. Like it's all
Right.
just like the dandelion weeds like growing up. But
Yeah.
even that, I'm like, well, those are wildflowers. And I think about
Yes.
how he says like he takes care of the wildflowers, like how much more would he take care of us? And that's my like paraphrase of that
Amen.
verse
Yeah. Right.
in I think it's in Matthew. But
Yes.
yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. All right, well, switching gears as we like wrap up, I always love to ask people as we end the show, what is just something that's bringing you joy in the season? It could be a product, it can be a show, it can be something with your family, an activity, but I just always love hearing what's bringing people joy because sometimes it's something we can think to do too.
Yes. Well, I I feel kind of bad now because you were saying you're not really seeing flowers there, but we're but it's spring here, so there's like a lot of flowers blooming.
Yeah. I feel
Just
like you
yeah.
guys have like the better weather.
We
It's
did,
still
yeah.
like we're still in that uncertain time in
Yes,
Ohio where we're like, "Is winter over? I don't know. Is it spring? Maybe. Is it summer? Today it is." Like, it's just
totally.
all the weather. Like, today it's just been raining and storming.
Yes. So I used to live in Chicago, so I
Oh
totally know
gosh.
what weather you're talking about. And like, while it's so I do love the seasons. So it's like
Mhm.
they're so sweet, right? You guys have like four distinct seasons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So that's beautiful. Like a fall and like when spring comes, like
Mhm.
it's there. But yeah, here there's really not like a
Yeah.
variety of seasons. So, but anyway, yeah, I just right now what is it really is bringing me joy is that spring season. I love spring, the flowers, and also I would say that my favorite coffee shop has a spring drink and it's a strawberry latte.
Cool. Does it have
Yeah.
coffee or is it
It's
like
coffee.
matcha? Coffee.
Actually,
Okay.
it's funny you asked that, like, because it's typically a matcha, like a strawberry matcha, which I love
Okay.
matcha.
Yeah.
I love both. But I asked them if they could make it with a latte coffee like a
Yeah.
few weeks ago,
Yeah.
just because I wanted to try it, and it's really good. So
Well, I'll have to look for
that,
something like that because I think this time of year is like strawberry season in Ohio.
okay.
And
Yeah.
I would think that like
Yeah.
strawberries would go really well with coffee because a lot
Yes.
of coffees have like a berry undertone to them.
Oh,
I'm kind
okay.
of a coffee nerd. So
Are you? I was like, oh, I didn't know. Okay. Oh, that's
yeah,
good. Oh,
I
yeah.
have like this whole coffee setup in our
I
house, and
love
my husband's
that.
like, "Why do we need four different ways to make coffee?" I'm like, "Because
Yeah.
I like to try them all."
Good. I love it. See, that's
Yeah,
so
and I like
fun.
he loves his, like, Maxwell, like, coffee blend, and
Really?
I love more of, like, an organic, like,
Uh-huh.
know where it's come from, like, make sure it doesn't have any mold and, like, all this stuff,
Yeah.
and he's
Look
like,
at
"Just give me the
you.
Maxwell."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "I
I
like
love it.
certain blends from certain places and everything." Yeah,
Wow. Oh my
I like to
gosh.
taste all of them, and yeah,
Yes. Oh my gosh, you'll
I'll
have to
have to
send
try that.
me. Will you send me
Yeah.
some of your favorites, like, so I
Yeah.
can look into those? Because I'm
Yeah.
trying to make more at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what you could do is if you can't find, like, a coffee shop, you could probably make your own little strawberries, like, syrup,
Yeah, for
you
sure,
know,
like, us
at
yeah, because 'cause
home.
I've made a couple syrups at home before just for
Yeah,
fun. Because again,
that's
I like to
awesome.
experiment with the coffees and
I
stuff,
love
and
that.
I work from home, and so
Yes,
I'm
right.
here, like, most every day. Sometimes I go to a co-working space or a coffee shop, but I love to, like, experiment with making different types
Yes,
of coffees, so I love that.
I
That's
love
so fun.
that.
Strawberry latte, okay.
Yeah, you'll have to try it.
Yeah, okay. I'm
I
glad I
know.
asked this question.
Yes, me
That's
too.
so fun. Well, that's amazing. Well, is how can everyone connect with you on like Instagram or wherever you are online? And also, I know the book just came out, so I'll link that in the show notes. But if there's any specific place you want to mention that they should go to purchase it.
Great. Yes. So on social media, on Instagram, it's under Sincerely by Kara. And I share prayers on there, devotionals, Bible plans. And then my website, karastout.com. That's where you can find more information about the book. And on there's also the different ways if you want to order. You can order on Amazon. And then there's also links on my website to like Barnes and Noble or Target and other book retailers as well.
That's awesome. Perfect.
Yeah.
And it'll be for the listeners linked in the show notes so that you can find all the things. But Kara, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was such a joy to talk to you, and I've just loved our conversation.
Oh, me too, Courtney. Thank you so much.